the LTV, what's the GTM. So you kind of got to be into all of those things quite naturally. You naturally want to read business books. So you're not going to enjoy that if you hate business or if you hate technology, because those businesses tend to be about business strategy and tech. These ones are about intellectual property, media, and data.
Do you think you would be happier if you were less ambitious?
My happiness levels are really high. I walk around feeling like I'm super lucky to do what I do, and it's total privilege, and I love living in these times. I can't believe I'm lucky enough to be born at the perfect time to see this change and to have access to all these resources.
And how do you think about work-life balance these days? And how should, especially sort of young founders, when I say young founders, I don't mean age, I mean stage, should be thinking about work-life balance in your view?
So I had no balance for many years, probably a decade or more. All I did was essentially just get out of bed, work, everything related to work. And the reason I did that is that it ticked all of my human needs. Right? I was getting significance and variety, and I was getting certainty, and I was getting all of those things that we want from life, and I was feeling a sense of growth and development and learning. So everything plugged into those human needs, and my business was giving me all of that. When I had kids and I got married, there was this whole other side to me that needed to be balanced. And I think that there's more to do with there's some seasons. Like we go through sprints, and I tell friends, family, hey, I'm going through a bit of a sprint right now, we're launching something new. And then there are times where I switch off a lot.
Do you goal set at all? Do you set goals?
I used to set goals, and I used to love setting goals. I don't anymore, because my key person of influence brand brings in opportunities that I can't predict. So this Diary of a CEO thing was an example of that. I had all these goals for 2024, and then you message me while I'm skiing and say, would you like to come on the show? And I go, of course, that would be amazing. So I come on the show, and then that totally transformed my year. So as you build a brand, it's harder to goal set because you've got too many things. So your goal setting is about direct power, direct influence, and having a brand is about indirect power or indirect influence. It's what you attract. So ultimately, at the early stages, goal setting is really important because it's how do I direct my energy. Once you get a little bit bigger, you have to slow down to speed up. You have to create space to see what's happening around you. One of the biggest mistakes I've ever made was filling my diary so full that I didn't see some of the biggest opportunities that were going on around me. And I think this has cost me tens of millions. And I really think at a certain level, strategically, you have to slow down to speed up. You have to create gaps where things can hit you, things can get onto your radar, or else you miss all the benefits of having a great brand.
So I have a few questions here. One of them is about how you measure or quantify the value of an opportunity looking forward when you have very little information about opportunities.
So what we're trying to move towards is leverage. So we live in a world of leverage, and there are types of, so it's important to understand there are two types of opportunities. There's bell curve opportunities and power law opportunities. So bell curve opportunities means that everything fits within a bell curve, and it's very unlikely that anything will be outside of that bell curve. Power law opportunities means that because of leverage, the sky's the limit. What we have to do is have the courage to move out of bell curves and into power laws. So, for example, a doctor in the NHS, who I know, recognise that all doctors earn roughly the same amount of money. There's no outliers. Everyone who works in the NHS, if you're a new doctor, you earn about this. If you've been around for 20 years, you earn about this. And most people fit within that bell curve. There's no doctors who are making $1 million a month type thing. Then there's the power law. This particular guy dropped out of being an NHS doctor to become a YouTuber and recognised that there are some YouTubers who are actually earning $1 million a month, and boom, there is this power law that goes up. So what we're trying to find out...
Ali Abdal.
Yes, of course, Ali Abdal. So what we're trying to figure out, is this a bell curve or a power law? So being a speaker on a stage, absolutely a power law move. Being friends with a billionaire in Italy and having access to that capital, access to whatever networks they've got, all of that sort of stuff, if they're the right sort of person. There's definitely two types of billionaires, but that's probably an exponential opportunity, right? It puts you further up the power law. It's not a bell curve opportunity. However, if someone says, can we meet to talk about some incremental thing? No, that's a bell curve, right? That's not gonna break me out of what I'm doing. So for most people listening to this, most people are trapped inside a bell curve. You're never going to get out of that bell curve. Every opportunity fits within that bell curve. You're only going to incrementally move from one side of the bell curve to the other side of the bell curve, and that's about it. There is no massive upside. If that's you, what you need to be doing is spending a little bit of time talking to people about exponential opportunities, right? And exponential opportunities always involve leverage. That's what creates the exponential shift. Leverage could be fame. Leverage could be capital. Leverage could be large databases. Leverage could be huge distribution networks that already exist. Leverage could be a partnership with someone who's way further along than you are. Leverage could be being in business versus being in a job. So all of those things are things that move you onto the Powerball. And it's almost the sky's the limit at the moment, because in 2010, 28% of the world had fast internet. And in 2025, 70% of the world has fast internet. So 70% of 8 billion people have got fast internet. So the number of people available to talk to has gone into the billions and billions and billions. The amount of capital is flooding into the internet. Everything is in that space. And ultimately, unfortunately, one of the things that's happening at the moment is that you're either in competition with everyone in the world, or everyone in the world is a potential customer. And if you feel that you're in competition with everyone in the world, which a lot of people do, it's terrifying. It feels horrible. It's absolutely scary to think that, for a lot of businesses and a lot of individuals with a career, it's like, wow, I'm in competition with AI. I'm in competition with an agency in India or a remote worker in the Philippines who's happy for $5 an hour. I'm in competition with someone who's phenomenally well funded in LA. I'm in competition with this incredible tech team in Silicon Valley.
YouTubers.
Yeah. I'm competing on the opportunity. I'm competing for attention. Like, how am I going to survive? And then the flip side of that is that once you make this transition to this new rules, new way of doing things, then it flips. It's like, oh, everyone's a potential customer.
So how do you think about defense? In many of your businesses that you run, you're in competition with lots of people. Where do you find areas to defend against that competition, the sort of proverbial blue oceans?
So what I'm looking for when I set up my businesses to scale is we ask the question, how many people this year could we either take on and leave them feeling completely delighted? How many people this year would represent a phenomenally good year? Right. So in one of the businesses, the number is 600. We say, okay, 600 people. If we have 600 people, 600 clients in this particular business for this year, that's a really good year. We're happy with that year. So we call that the official capacity of the business. We give it a name. Official capacity is 600. Then we ask the question, what percentage of our leads buy that product? And in that business, it's 1 in 66. So for every 66 leads we generate, we get one client who's the perfect client. So it's a very particular focused business. So then we know that we need to engage 49,000 people. And if those 49,000 people engage with us, then we will be able to select the 600 clients we work with, and that we will absolutely do everything we can to leave those 600 people feeling delighted, that they want to recommend it, refer it, and love it. And for us, just simply knowing those numbers, that allows us to say, okay, we engage 49,000 people, we make our 600 sales, it's a super successful year, we can celebrate that. So by setting the rules to our game, we're not dragged into anybody else's rules. And that means that we're playing a really defensive game. We're defending against all the things that we could focus on, by being really specific about what we want to focus on.
And for those kids on the promenade in Cape Town that I keep referring back to, if they'd asked you, if they said, Daniel, what industry would you start a business in today if you were us and you had limited funds?
Well, let's do some big trends. The biggest opportunity at the moment is 50% of the economy is owned by baby boomers, people aged 61 to 79. So that's 50% of the US economy, 50% of the Australian, the New Zealand, the Canadian, the UK, right? So all the sort of major Western economies that had a baby boom, 50% of the economy is owned by people aged 61 to 79. So those people are going through a big life change. They're transforming the way they live and work. They want to get rid of their businesses. They want to move into advisory roles. They want to travel. They want to have different relationships. They want to have different priorities. So I would definitely be thinking about, how do I work with that group of people? I'm either going to buy their business and take it over, which would be an opportunity. I'm going to build a business that disrupts the current way that they're doing business, or I'm going to sell to that market because they're cashed up, they've got loads of time, loads of money. And every business could think about how it's going to sell to a baby boomer market, because that's 50%.
So a good example might be of like baby boomer business. What's a good baby boomer business?
Everything. The whole economy is made up of baby. Like if we went out on the street here,
Yeah.
the person down the road who's doing the MOT on the cars is a baby boomer business. The guy who services the elevators that come up and down here, that's a baby boomer. The air conditioning unit business is a baby boomer business. The courier company that kind of dropped everything off, it's a baby boomer business. The whole damn shooting match is like half the businesses, especially by revenue and valuation, it's all baby boomers, or half baby boomers at least.
And then maybe sort of a digital arbitrage opportunity that there's been created with the transfer of, with the rise of digital, that they might have missed, that you could seize upon?
It massively, well, one of the things is that every single business in the world is going to be disrupted by AI. And you've got to be the company that uses AI when they're not. And using AI, like being disrupted by AI, just means that every employee is way more effective because they're using AI. So one of the simple things to disrupt a business with AI is to run a training workshop with all the people in the company about how they could use AI in their role. And you could watch some videos online, and you could play with ChatGPT. Recently, we introduced an AI system to one of our businesses. We have 250 video case studies of clients who are happy customers, and they've recorded a video for us. And they're amazing video case studies, but there's too many of them. There's so many video case studies. So we created an AI bot that reads and understands all of those video case studies. And then for my sales team, when they're talking to a customer, they're just typing in the type of scenario that person's going through. And the bot is then suggesting, oh, this is the video case study, this is the customer, this is what they said, same industry as you, same problem, same challenge. And then here's the link to the video case study. Mm-hmm. So our sales team can be super effective at sending you through the exact video case study that's relevant to you, mm-hmm. because the AI bot has read and understood every single one of our video case studies. So that's an example.
There's been so many of these technological revolutions over the last 50 odd years that I look back on and thought, oh gosh, I wish I was there at the dot-com boom. I would have become a billionaire. I would have had all, a variety of different ideas. Do you think AI is that now? Do you think we're living through?
We're early. It's so early, right? It's the moment. I remember when Steve Jobs launched the App Store, and that was 2007, 2008. It was 2 years later that Instagram was launched. It was 2 years later that Uber was launched. And then there was a march of hundreds of different businesses. And now, applications are everywhere. The bigger example would be electricity. So it was the 1830s where we generated electricity, but it wasn't until the 1930s that we filled our houses full of things that ran on electricity. So it was a 100-year transition. Now with AI, we're at the early stage of generating AI, but we're not yet into the stage of creating everything that runs on AI. So think about a power station versus a toaster. So the power station's been invented, but there's thousands and thousands and thousands of toasters that can be invented. Toasters, kettles, vacuum cleaners, things that run on electricity. So AI is like electricity, but we haven't built all the businesses that are going to plug in and are going to be great opportunities. And that's going to be over the next 10 to 15 years. Every single industry, you can't name an industry that's not going to be impacted by this. Every industry is going to have applications that run on AI. There's going to be new teams. Do you know what happened just a couple of weeks ago? NVIDIA launched a supercomputer for $3,000. Now, this is going to be the fundamental basis for 10 people companies that do $1 billion of revenue. This is going to be entrepreneurs who crunch some data, figure out a little application, because of that kind of compute power, they're going to come up with something and it's going to be $1 billion business with 10 people working on the team. There's going to be a little healthcare unit that figures out how to crunch data and solve a really complex health problem, and they'll figure out how to do it. That supercomputer for $3,000 supersedes what people used to be spending $3 to $6 to $9,000 a month on. So previously, you would have had to subscribe to that level of compute, and you would have been spending, $50,000 a year just for the cloud subscription to that sort of thing. Now, one payment of $3,000, you can be anywhere in the world crunching any amounts of phenomenal data. So just that one thing, that one innovation, is going to totally transform industries.
I would imagine that, I'm going to guess, 95% of people that are listening right now don't know a lot about AI. They also don't really know a lot about technology to the extent that many of the people do, the 5% do. For those people who are, it could be the taxi driver, it could be the janitor, it could be a student in university studying philosophy or something, what advice would you give them if you were the puppet master of their life now and you had to get them close to this opportunity? What are the sort of steps you take towards being able to capitalize on something like NVIDIA's supercomputer?
Yeah, so of course it's a pyramid. So the schooling system taught you that the way to be successful was to turn labor into skilled labor. So become skilled labor. Your time and your skills are what's valuable. And that was the Industrial Revolution model for everybody. We all went through that system, and we said that's where the journey ends. In fact, if you want, you can go to university and become really skilled labor. You can get a master's and become really skilled labor. PhD, become super skilled labor. And the whole goal is sell your time for more money. And then sitting on top of that is this new universe. And the new universe is this digital economy. And the first step above it is called intellectual property. Intellectual property is where, rather than learning more stuff, you reflect and create some stuff. So you say, over the last 5 years, I did something special with that client, and we've got a great result, and I can explain it step by step. I'm going to document that. I'm going to turn that into a story, and I'm going to record a video about it, and I'm going to have a little poster with a wheel that explains how we did that, and then I'm just going to let people know about that. So now we're in the business of intellectual property. Intellectual property is anything written, anything video, anything audio, right? So intellectual property couples up with media. So IP and media are the next level above skilled labor. So the first step, get out of skilled labor model and get into intellectual property and media. And just making that step opens you up to this whole other world of opportunities. If you must know the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey. He passed away 10 years ago. He was not some special guy. He was a church leader in Utah. He did some consulting with small businesses and he did some consulting with churches. But he just reflected on what he'd seen, and he reflected on a few studies that he'd come across, and he wrote this book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So he went from skilled labor, consulting, to intellectual property and media, which was his written word plus his book publishing. So that's step one, and mind you, he sold 20 million copies and he built a $400 million consulting company. But it was based on IP, not his labor. So that's step one. Sitting above that is data and intellectual property, media and data and software. So once we have IP and media, now we want data and software. So data is where we build a database, we get email addresses, we get information about customers, we know more about markets, we get people filling in forms, we get people filling in scorecards, we start conducting surveys. So we're capturing data that's unique to us, and then software is the ability to turn our intellectual property into an engine that just automatically delivers a result. And in that software bucket is the ability to create AI applications. So you're going to have to move your way up that pyramid. And then the final little top of the pyramid is the ability to create financial assets. Financial assets is where you sell your business for an amount of money. So you actually package all of that into a business that can be sold, and that business becomes a financial asset. The shares become a financial asset, and then you make a lot of money by selling your company. So you can't jump straight from being labor or skilled labor straight up to software and data and those sorts of things, which is the AI, advanced AI stuff. So you've got to go through intellectual property, media, data, software.
And what do you do with your money? So everyone has a different sort of finance strategy and investment strategy. What's your investment strategy?
I've said to you before that I